So, for those of you who are a fan of practical magic, today we're going to talk about the Deathwatch Beetle. You know, um, Here, the first scene had set up the spell that turned into a curse that any man who dared love an Owens woman was bound to die early. Here we have the main characters, Sally and Jillian. You see them as children, and here's their mother, and she hears this ticking sound all day long, and it is the Deathwatch Beetle, which she knows that her husband will soon die. So, what is the history behind the Deathwatch Beetle? What is it? Um, that's what we're going to learn about today. We're going to talk about all about the Deathwatch Beetle, which is found in both the Practical Magic movie and Alice Hoffman's book by the same name, Practical Magic. So in this scene, we see the girls talking to their aunt. So they're actually talking about their mother. What became of their mother? Apparently, the mother died of a broken heart. She died of mourning her husband. So the girls bring up that, any man who marries this is going to croak. So here you have the aunts bickering back and forth. Jet thinks it's nonsense. The character played here by Stockard Channing, the aunt, she's totally convinced it is real. In the book, um, her love interest was hit by lightning on the town square. So here we have the girls exploring this concept of that any man who loved them is going to die. Okay, so here we have somebody who did a YouTube video showing the damage done by Deathwatch beetles. And what they are is these wood boring beetles that actually get into the timber of old structures and begin to bore holes through them, which will weaken the structure over time. And here you see the actual holes that they burrow through into. Some may stay in the wood up to 10 years before they actually emerge, and the entire time they're eating the wood. And the tapping sound that the Deathwatch beetle makes is actually a mating sound. What will happen is first it's usually the male, and they actually pound their head against the wood to make a sound, and then the female will respond, usually with a couple of taps, until so they can find each other. So yeah, they're actually pounding their head against the wood. Um, it's this contact. It's a way to contact each other for mating season. So actually, the sound of the Death Watch beetle are these beetles talking to each other. Um, and the reason why it's called Death Watch is because it's based on when people used to sit up with people who were dying, usually someone who had the night watch, which the Death Watch is the sounds in the house were so quiet that that's when you could hear these beetles the most. So that's why they call it a Death Watch beetle. Um, some people think they're maybe wonder if they're close to the woodworm, the termites. Um, they would probably be closer in cousins to a woodworm, but um, they are very different. But the result is the same. They eat through the wood and actually, and so your structure is ruined. Okay, so here we have a video where someone actually shared what they sound like. You can see they're actually tapping their head against the wood to make the sound. Okay, so this is kind of cute. Someone made this is a marionette of a Deathwatch beetle that someone created. You can see if you look closely, there are little black beads. Yeah, they're making the sound. I don't know the story behind why someone made a marionette of a Deathwatch beetle, but hey, here you go. Now here you have what a Deathwatch beetle actually looks like. Not very pretty. They're not very large. Some people want to know if they're related to woodworms. They're distantly related, but the beetle and the worm is different. However, most of the time they are found in Europe. There are some found in North America, but they are much more common in Europe, United Kingdom. So we may not see them in the United States as much as our friends across the pond. Here you have Sally waking up in the middle of the night. We're fast forwarding. She's already an adult. She is married to Michael now. She has 2 children. And here she begins to hear the Deathwatch Beetle. She hears this ticking that is in the house. There we see it going across the carpet. And I think they're a little bit smaller than that. But of course, in movies, we've got to be able to see these things. So at first, she doesn't really realize what it is. And then the next day, it hits her. And as we see in the film, she has this foreboding of his death. She's worrying about him all day. It says in the book, she tried to get him not to go to work that day. Um, in the book, Michael was actually killed by stepping off a curb and getting hit by a car with some teenagers that had a bit too much to drink. Here you see Sally. She is trying to find that beetle. She wants to get it out of the house. She thinks if she can destroy the beetle, it will sort of make it where his death will not happen. She may reject her magic some, but she believes in these omens and these signs. And this isn't the first time that the Deathwatch Beetle has been used in literature before. I mean, Henry David Thoreau published an essay in which he mentioned the Deathwatch Beetle. It was in Mark Twain's Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I think, let's see, the quote is, "Next, the ghastly ticking of a death watch in the wall at the bed's head made Tom shudder. It meant that somebody's days were numbered." So this is something that goes throughout history. Everyone, um, hundreds of years, have thought of the Deathwatch Beetle as being a foreboding of death coming. And you found it in other places. Linda Paston wrote a poem entitled "The Deathwatch Beetle," and of course, we know Alice Hoffman had made reference to it in the book Practical Magic as an omen of death. And here we see it again in the film. So I hope you enjoyed this. Has been our little clip of what is a Deathwatch Beetle and why is it in this movie and how does it have so much significance. It's the idea of it is an omen of death has been around for a long time, and it's always good to see when writers and movie makers really do their research to include real magic in films. This has been G with Aroma G's Botanica. Happy movie watching.